All right. Hey, everybody. My name's Evan. I'm a president of the Envirolution Club at Truckee High School. You might recognize me from the trash and shows that we do at your school. I've been part of the Envirolution Club for about 4 years. And one thing I love to work on with you guys is talking about sustainability and how we can help the environment because you guys can make a difference. So today, my friends and I from the Envirolution Club are going to talk all about climate change, which is a big part of how we can help the planet. I'm sure you guys have heard about climate change before, but today we're going to take a deep dive into it. We're going to explore all the different aspects of climate change, which is a big part of how we can help Mother Nature. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Alani to get started.
So what do we think of when we hear the words climate change? Most of you probably know it's not a great thing because it shortens our ski season. But what is it really? That's what we're going to tell you guys today. Climate change describes a change in the average conditions such as temperature and rainfall and snowfall in a region over a long period of time. But what's the difference between plain weather changes and climate change?
Good question, Alani. So, Emma, what's the scoop on weather?
Hey everybody! So we are going to be talking about weather, or more specifically, what is weather? Now, something to keep in mind, or a question that you can use to help yourself is, what do you see happening in the atmosphere today? For example, like what's going on? Weather can be rainy, or it can be sunny, or it can be windy. So there are lots of different weather patterns, and it changes from day to day. And that's the difference between weather and climate, but you'll go a lot more into climate in the next slide. But weather is just something that's happening right now.
Hey, Haley, if weather's happening now, then I wonder when climate is happening.
Alright, so now that we know about weather, what is climate? And climate is super similar to weather, but instead of being measured on that day-to-day basis, climate is the weather patterns over a long period of time. So over 10 to 30 years, the patterns that you see in the weather is what makes up the climate.
Sweet! So now we got climate figured out, but we also really need to know about one other thing, and that is the greenhouse effect. Take it away, Maddie.
Okay, so the greenhouse effect. What is the greenhouse effect? Before you can know that, you need to know what an atmosphere is. And so the atmosphere is basically just that layer of air that blankets our Earth. It's just a bunch of different gases, and it just goes all the way around our planet. What the atmosphere does is it traps heat from the sun. So in this little diagram here, you can see that this blue line represents our atmosphere, and as heat comes from the sun and it goes to the Earth, it gets trapped under the atmosphere, and that is how our planet retains heat. This is necessary for all life on Earth. If we didn't have this atmosphere that retains heat, there would be no life. Our planet would be cold and barren. But what happens is, as daily life goes on, more and more gases get released from things like cars and factories, and cows, believe it or not, are a big producer of gas. And so this makes our atmosphere get thicker. And so when our atmosphere gets thicker, this is actually a problem. You can check out why that's a problem on the next slide.
Uh-oh. I can think of a lot of reasons not to want a lot of gas. Scarlett, what's Earth's issue?
So, the problem with the greenhouse effect is that as the atmosphere gets thicker and thicker, sunlight is unable to leave. The heat gets trapped here. It increases heat here on Earth and disrupts many of the ecosystems and habitats. This is a pretty big problem because so many organisms are affected by the increased temperatures, and it's kind of a ripple effect.
Yikes! Hot air and hot water? That sounds really uncomfortable. Jess, I think we'd like to know a bit more about those gases.
So you may be wondering, what are these greenhouse gases that have created this thick layer in the atmosphere? And where did they come from? Well, 250 years ago, humans discovered a new energy source that we call fossil fuels. These fossil fuels are things like coal, oil, and natural gas. They come from the earth that we dug up. And we found that when these fossil fuels are burned, they produce an energy that would allow us to power new machines like trains and textile machines. So we no longer had to use horses pulling carts and wagons for transportation, and we no longer had to hand sew items of clothing.
Right then, so fossil fuels creates energy and then it powers all this stuff. But there's gotta be a catch. Help us out, Keely.
Although we had all these technological advances, we encountered some problems, and the first problem we had with relation to greenhouse gases is emissions. Emissions are what are produced when we burn fossil fuels, which are coal, oil, and natural gases. These emissions are then let into the atmosphere, and this thickens the blanket around the Earth and keeps all the warm air trapped in our atmosphere. Two gases that are released into the atmosphere that continue to warm it are carbon dioxide and methane, and although we need some carbon dioxide, we do not need as much as we are releasing into our atmosphere.
Alright, so it's important to remember that that word emissions is what we call gases that are being released into the air. Now Anna Ting is up next with some of our other problems.
So in addition to the problem of increased emissions, we also have this problem of deforestation. Now deforestation is cutting down whole forests of trees, so getting rid of big, large forests of trees. And this is a problem because we're changing habitat, we're causing habitat loss. But this is also a problem for our atmosphere because trees absorb carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas. And so without trees, we have more CO2 getting into the atmosphere, which is causing the blanket to get even thicker, which causes the problem to get even bigger.
Gotcha. So trees use carbon dioxide, and without the trees, all that carbon dioxide just stays in the air. Hey, London, what changes are we seeing today?
Okay, so what can we see in our world that shows that these emissions are getting too high? So the first example is the Monarch Butterflies. So as many of you know, we have a lot of Monarch Butterflies in Tahoe. This is because we are on their path down from Mexico all the way up into the top of Canada. So in order for these monarch butterflies to take their huge trek up to Canada, they need a lot of energy. So in order for these butterflies to get their energy, they need milkweed. That's where they acquire their energy. So one thing that we're noticing with climate change is that milkweed actually can't grow in super high temperatures. So what this means is that when the emissions rise up the temperatures, less milkweed can grow because they can't live when it's super, super hot outside. So since less milkweed can survive, less butterflies can make their trek all the way up to Canada. So a decline in milkweed also equals a decline in butterflies. So this is just one of the examples of what climate change is doing to our world.
So with more drought, I'm sure it's not only milkweed that's not surviving. I bet a lot of other plants aren't either. Hey Lizzie, can you fill us in on any more?
Hey guys! So another change that we are seeing are these natural disasters that are occurring more often and more intensely. We have actually seen them on a local scale with all the wildfires that have happened this year. And other natural disasters can include tornadoes, hurricanes, and even drought. Also, habitat conditions are changing. For instance, the Arctic is warming, causing the ice that polar bears depend on to melt away, forcing them to leave their homes. And it's also super important to note that the rate of warming is different all around the world. So different parts or places of the world are seeing these changes in different ways and different rates. So while one place may be suffering from a drought, another place may be experiencing a hurricane.
Wow, after hearing all of that, I certainly want to help my community fight climate change. Remember that guy, Evan? I think he has some ideas for us on how we could do that.
Unfortunately, climate change is happening, and we're seeing its impact on people and ecosystems all around the world. Do you guys remember the fires from last year? The smoke and fires are all getting worse because of climate change. Luckily, there are so many ways we can help. Now that we're all climate change experts, we can start making choices to reduce our own carbon footprint. So there are things you can do to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases going into the air. How do you guys think we can reduce our carbon footprint? Well, there are so many ways. One thing we can do is walk, ride a bike, or take the bus. These are all super efficient ways to get around. You can also advocate for using solar power. The school district and the town of Truckee are both spending a lot of time switching to renewable energy. Another big one is eating your food. Throwing out food waste releases greenhouse gases, so only take what you can eat and join the Clean Plate Club. And finally, you guys can all be eco-friendly buyers. When you're out shopping, maybe with your parents, make sure you buy in bulk, bring your own bags, and reuse jars whenever you can.
Woohoo! Put me in, Coach. I want to help out. Hey, Sabrina, can we wrap this up so that we can all get started?
It's important to us that you take action in our community. Finding something that you can do inside your house, at school, or anywhere in the world can help make a difference. Stop using single-use utensils. Begin biking to school. Reducing our carbon footprint makes a difference for our future. Action fosters hope. Talk to your friends and family all about the environment and what you can do to make a difference. And most importantly, speak up about what you believe in. It's time to take action.
All right, let's get after it, everybody. I'd like to say a big thank you to Town of Truckee's Keep Truckee Green programs for their continued support in our student sustainability programs.